What's up, everybody? Welcome to the second edition of Teaching Tuesday. Last week, I talked about the identify, or I schedule everything or plan everything according to Bloom's taxonomy. Today, I'm going to show you what a lesson could look like on the second stage of that rigor complex when it comes to the comprehension. But it's with a little mix. Last week, I did inferencing, which is high level as well. This week, I'm going to do theme, which is one of the harder concepts to teach. Really early in my career, I didn't understand how complex theme was, but essentially you're talking about the kids being able to analyze the whole story and come up with what the author wants them to get from it. So they have to know characters, they have to know setting, they have to know plot, they have to be able to inference, they have to have a litany of skills to be able to do this. So it's one of the harder skills to teach. But if you scaffold the proper way, they will be able to accomplish this and be able to come up with a proper theme. And today I'm going to show you how they can do it properly with evidence. All right, so the first thing you always want to do here when you're working on skills like this is always about the tics and skills. So for the purpose of this, I'm going to show you what a skill progression could look at. So say like yesterday, I taught the kids how to identify the theme of a text. And then so today, what I did with my kids actually in the classroom was I asked them to determine the theme and support with evidence. But what I did, I actually gave them the theme and they had to support it with their evidence and look for it within the text. So to start the lesson, I like doing audio video alouds. I'm not very big on just doing read alouds after the first day of introducing the skill. But in a sense, I still did a read aloud, but it was more audio aloud, so to speak, and they got to watch it. So the book I used was The Invisible Boy. You can buy it on Amazon. But I played it aloud to my scholars. For copyright purposes, can't play the whole thing, but it's The Invisible Boy. So what I did, I started off the lesson by asking the kids. So you embed those other skills with this excellent book, by the way. So I asked the kids what the book was going to be about. Then after I asked them what it was going to be about, I continued to progress throughout the story. There were different things that happened. Of course, the character starts off invisible. Then he gains color as the story goes along. But you ask those little think aloud questions throughout. Like, okay, why was he smiling at the other little kid when they came in? Why was he drawing characters, different, superheroes and different things throughout the story? Why was he doing this, and this? So the inference, characterization, plot, what's the problem? You ask all those things. This book is very good for all of those things. It all leads up to an overall theme at the end. The kid ends up not being invisible anymore and he has friends. So he solves the problem. So in a sense, I gave the kids a theme of saying you should accept others for who they are. And I asked them to give me evidence to support it. So we did virtual. I'm doing virtual hybrid. So I might have gave them the theme, and then they would have to tell me the evidence. Hey, because Brian at the beginning he was this way, and at the end he was this way. This is my evidence. So you want them to be able to support that with evidence, but how the characters change throughout the story. All right. So after I kind of scaffolded that and did a video aloud or audio aloud, whatever you want to call it, I moved on to them being able to practice their skill. First, I started with the story of the two goats. Now, it wouldn't hurt to also go over the theme again as to what it is, because especially I dealt with third graders today and fourth and fifth graders, but a lot of kids may not 100% know what a theme is. All right, so short story for third graders, and the theme is already there for a fable. So what they have to do, it says it is better to yield than to come to misfortune through stubbornness. So with this, all I had the kids, for one, you need to teach them what yield means and misfortune means, and they'll talk about how the goats didn't yield, and then they fell to their deaths or fell in the water. And so they did this together collaboratively. I sent them into breakout rooms, and those in person could work together. All right, and then once we got done with that, the kids read The Dog and Its Reflection, and it says it is foolish to be greedy. So they would work on that by themselves and talk about why they're foolish to be greedy. And they talked about, and then after the fact, my kids, when we went through and reviewed it, we talked about how the dog was very foolish jumping after the shadow and he wanted to get a bigger bone, but it really was his bone. So that's how he was being foolish. Now, here's the next step in this. People talk about making connections between texts. That's always tough to really teach that. But if you embed those questions while you're doing simple things like this, even the last 3-4 minutes of class saying, hey, how are those stories similar? And then my scholars were able to tell me today, like, oh, okay, they both something about them being foolish, or they both were doing something they shouldn't have been doing, and they both got hurt because of that. They both dove in water. The difference is one was about water and one of them was about I think think it was a bridge. It's like little things like that, like them to make those connections between the text. The things may be somewhat different, but what are the similarities in what the characters did? All right, so they showed that different level of understanding with theme. And then now when they on the test or something like that, they'll be able to say, oh, this is my evidence. This is what the character said. And my 4th and 5th graders are able to do the same, but with more complex text. All right, so at that point, your scholars would have been able to effectively, if you're in Texas to teach whatever the Common Core skill, they'd have been able to accomplish that skill of being able to identify the theme and support it with evidence. And then you move on to inferring and being able to truly take a deep dive. The theme is essentially part of my last week of a fiction unit where they're analyzing, evaluating, and synthesizing. So I hope this was helpful. If you would like help with your lesson planning or anything like that, you can hit up the phenomenalstudent@gmail.com. Very willing to can point you to the resources, which you can use, and how you'll be able to do this and engage your scholars where they would get the content, and you can reduce teacher talk, the whole nine, where you embed those questioning stems, those sentence stems, and think alouds and things like that. I'm pretty skilled at that. So again, if you need help, the phenomenalstudent@gmail.com. Thank you. And as always, be